You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.
Bitcoin, Ether, Ripple, Litecoin, and more. Cryptocurrencies and other digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity. Provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week, we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments on everything from coins to tokens, futures, and even OTC options. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody. That music means we're back. It's time to talk once again about a little bit of crypto action. We've been off for a couple of weeks. Of course, the big Memorial Day holiday here in the U.S. last Monday. So no show last week. So we have a lot to get to. 2 weeks worth of fun in the crypto trading space. And spoiler alert, lots been trading just in the last 24 hours or so. And a lot's going on in the broad universe of all things crypto and blockchain and tokens and all that fun stuff. And to help me break it down, we got a great guest joining me on the Crypto Hot Seat. So without further ado, let's get right to it.
Forget about cold storage. It's time to turn up the heat on thought leaders from the world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time to take their place on the Crypto Hot Seat.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Crypto Hot Seat. This is the segment where we welcome on guests from throughout the world of crypto trading and analysis and products and tokens and exchanges and just about everything else under the sun, and proceed to pick their brains for the benefit of you, the listener. And I'm very pleased to welcome back our next guest. He's an old friend of the network. He's been on in various capacities, I should say, for many years, starting way back in the early days of our Trading Tech Talk program when he joined us as the tech guru from ISE, aka the International Securities Exchange. He's had a few stops in between over there at BATS as well as over there at the Cboe, and now he's wearing a new hat yet again. In fact, I hear a little birdie tells me a recently upgraded new hat. He is our old friend Kapil Rathi, formerly the global head of trading until this morning, when he now just got bumped up to COO, aka the Chief Operating Officer at AlphaPoint. Kapil, welcome back to the network. It's been too long, and I hear you've been up to a lot of things, so welcome back, sir.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you for taking me back into memories.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
It's been long, almost 10 plus years since we've been working together on this show with different capacities. It's I must say I missed being on this show for the last 5-6 months, and it's really good to be back.
Well, first off, let me just say congratulations. Obviously, you a lot's changed since the last time you and I chatted. The last time you and I chatted, you, of course, were at the Cboe. You were spearheading a lot of different initiatives, including some of their crypto fell under their domain. Now you've since moved on to AlphaPoint, where, indeed, congratulations, COO, sir. You just keep moving on up in the world. See, I think that's the thing. Every time you talk to me, every few months, it just bumps you up more. So I think the key is you got to beam in more frequently, sir.
Yeah, you're right, and thank you for the best wishes. And it's been an interesting journey. You're right. I think when I was working at Cboe, I caught the Bitcoin bug. Just couldn't kind of brush it off, and finally decided to take the plunge in blockchain and crypto space in November 2018. Here at AlphaPoint, just kind of enjoying the fintech innovations. There's a lot going on here. Thank you again.
Let's get into that then. Obviously, you've been at AlphaPoint for a little while now. Some of our listeners may not be familiar with what it is you guys do. So let's start there. What is it you guys do over there at AlphaPoint, Kapil?
Great. So AlphaPoint, in short, is a financial technology firm. We are very active in the blockchain and security token space, crypto space. The company was founded in 2013. In blockchain, that's like dog years, almost 6 years of blockchain experience. There are not many companies who can kind of say that, and I think we're very proud of the team that we have built here. It's a great team that sort of combines both sides of the world. We have great capital market experts. We have really solid blockchain and crypto technology experts. We are primarily in two business lines. One is primary issuance of digital assets, and the second is the secondary trading of these digital assets. And when I say digital assets, it could be crypto, it could be the assets that are backed by the real asset classes like real estate, commodities, project finance, private equity, private debt market. So we are helping sort of create this new marketplace, new asset class, bringing more and more liquidity into some of the areas which have been limited to a handful of investors so far. So we sort of kind of bringing it mainstream as well as bringing it to the market makers who are obviously, as you know, very active in traditional equities and options classes, having them participate in these different assets that have really never traded in secondary market. So it's go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just going to say, so I can come to you at AlphaPoint with my illiquid asset. You mentioned real estate. Could be anything that maybe doesn't trade a lot, which is an ideal candidate for something like this. You guys will then go ahead and effectively help them construct the token around it. And then also, it sounds like you guys will actually help them issue it. So you guys are functioning effectively as a bit of an exchange as well?
Yes. So, I mean, the best way to sort of kind of compare us is we are kind of like the operator of a traditional securities exchange where you can go raise capital. You can issue your securities. In our case, you are actually creating digital token. And then once that token is created, we have a fully scaled exchange trading platform, and you can trade those tokens in the secondary market. To be clear, we are a technology provider. We don't necessarily operate any of these markets. We currently power about 100 plus crypto exchanges out there. There are multiple digital tokens that have been listed on our platform. Right now, we are servicing as a technology provider to 100 plus customers on both primary issuance as well as the secondary market.
And why go the token route? Because I know it's a bit of a divisive issue in the crypto space, tokens versus the traditional quote unquote coins and other ways. It seems like tokenization is a way a lot of firms have chosen because it seems to be maybe it goes under the regulatory radar a little bit easier. Is that why you guys have opted for the token route? What is it that brought you into tokens versus some of the other ways to go?
Yeah, then it's just a matter of semantics, right? You can call them coin, you can call them token. At the end of the day, it is a digital representation of an asset, right? So that asset could be a project. I'm a private equity firm and I want to raise capital. Today, I have to I go through the private placement firm or I go to the investors directly. Obviously, there are very well-defined laws for that. But then it's when you create a digital representation, call it token, then you are going through the entire process of doing a capital raise, right? So whether it's underwriting, whether it's management of dividend, whether it's managing your cap table. So the entire process sort of gets created on top of a technology platform. I'm sure your listeners are very well aware of the concept of smart contract. So a lot of legal aspects of creating those capital raise events get captured on blockchain. And then once that token is created, then you can create a natural marketplace where if I want to get out of that investment 2 years down the road, I don't necessarily have to go back to the same private equity guy. I can actually now sell it to a third party who probably never had an opportunity to get into this on the first place. So it's almost like a new market, new economy that we are helping create. It's probably the best or second best use case of blockchain that the financial industry has found. Of course, crypto coins, Bitcoin was the first real good blockchain use case, and this is evolving into a real nice economy itself.
Yeah, that opens up a whole new landscape of different assets that don't really fit into your traditional bubbles to be traded on a traditional financial exchange like an equity or a bond or something along those lines, but they can be traded effectively in these smart contracts, these tokens. I'm curious, you mentioned private equity a lot. Is that the primary use case for AlphaPoint right now? Who are the ones is it real estate? Which industries are coming to you the most right now and saying, we want to do this, we want to create a smart digital token and list it and trade it through you?
That's a great question. So yeah, I do use the word private equity, primarily more emphasis on the private because these are private markets. But the type of projects we are working include, I'll give you some examples. The real estate is actually one of the most prominent case here. Then commodities, there are cases where some large players in, let's say, who have large storage or vaults storing gold, they are creating market on top of those type of commodities. We're dealing quite a lot in the private share market. So that's another interesting thing where you have now these unicorns not ready to go public for a long time, but then the early investors, the venture capitalists, the employees are locked into these companies. They are looking for a liquidity event. So that's a very interesting market. It's a private shares market. Then we're also looking at a lot of global sort of, there was a interesting project we did that's trading a secondary market. You must have heard in Colorado, one of the ski resort actually did tokenize itself. So wherever you see a new opportunity to create a new project where new investors can come in, we're looking at all over the place. There is just the amount of inbound inquiries in this space are amazing, and just the out-of-the-box thinking that's happening here is almost mind-blowing.
Yeah, the universe of potential products is almost limitless when you think about it from that capacity. Now, you mentioned earlier, providing liquidity, and that's kind of a challenge you guys have. You obviously come, as I mentioned earlier, from the traditional options and equity markets. So walk us through the challenge of that. How difficult is it to get out there and source liquidity in these spaces? Finding crypto market makers, for example. How challenging is that? You come from the options world most recently. Obviously, it's a challenge there as well. There are not many proprietary market-making firms left anymore to really get out there and step up and provide liquidity across the broad spectrum of optionable assets. How difficult is it for you to now go out there in this new environment, this new asset class that you guys are effectively creating, and find firms that can provide liquidity?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's actually one of the most important questions that our customers, potential customers, current customers, they ask is, okay, that's great, we can tokenize it, but then what's next? So let me take a step back. Think about it. If you are a private equity investor, you have invested in any of these projects, and most of these deals are very long-term deals, almost 7 to 10 years, you're locked into these deals. That's why they are limited to the high net worth individuals who can afford to have that type of lockup period. The middle class, the affluent middle class who actually qualifies as the accredited investors and under the current securities law is really not participating in that space because, I speak for many of our friends on the capital market in the equity and options industry. We're going to need some sort of liquidity. My kid probably is going to go to college, or I have another emergency where I want to get out of that investment. what do you do today? There are a couple of options. You probably call the issuer who has kind of sold you the security, or there are some big private equity houses who can probably give you 60 cents on the dollar or 70 cents on the dollar. You're going to take a really large, huge discount or a haircut when you want to get out of that security. And that is, quote unquote, the liquidity issue, right? So these asset classes are at all not liquid. Once in the new world, and I think it's still evolving, I'm not going to just pretend that it's a very rosy world. It's not as liquid as equities and options. In the new world, now there are two things. A, you can have natural buyers and sellers if there is a marketplace. So the example I laid out, when the investor who never got the opportunity to get in, he can come in. And as well as, and then secondary, when you essentially create an exchange which is providing all services that the Cboes, the New York Stock Exchange, and NASDAQ are providing, where you have streaming quotes opportunity, you have the same type of risk tools. Like if you take an example of our platform, it is essentially very similar to the platform that I was operating at ISC, BATS, and Cboe. So the platforms are giving exact same tools to the market makers. How do you manage the risk? How do you stream the codes? How do you reconcile the trades? So everything that you think a market maker needs is now available. With that said, of course, the market makers are slowly coming into this space. The crypto market makers are probably the natural sort of candidates who are more used to this new world. And I'm a firm believer that as the industry mature, some of our old friends from options and equities world will start jumping into this, and it is a great new asset class for them to actually participate in.
Now, I was just going to ask you that are you busting out the old Rolodex? Are you calling out the old firms and saying, hey, because I know just from speaking to them, a few of them have so far, but not many yet. Or is this again, like you kind of mentioned, maybe a new universe of firms that you're trying to pull in, or is it a little bit of both?
I think it is a combination of both. Especially crypto is truly the most global asset class that you can ever imagine. And a lot of market makers are coming from Asia, Europe, South America, and then, of course, my old friends in New York, Chicago, and San Fran. Of course, we've been talking to them very actively. So the market is evolving. There is, of course, a lot that still needs to be looked at. Of course, when for example, you're a market maker, you want to make sure you can hedge your quotes or your trades properly. So I think every conversation I go to, there is just a lot of amazing, innovative thinking that we get to.
Kapil, whenever I get a guest like you on who comes from the, shall we say, the traditional world of finance, it's always fun for me to kind of pick your brains on a little bit, like we just did of the comparing and contrasting of, shall we say, the old world to the new. I like to start, you kind of give us a little bit of a hint of it. I like to start with everyone. Everyone has that moment, that moment, the eureka moment where they thought, they rubbed their chin and they said, maybe there's more to these crypto things than I initially thought. For you, was that the case, just coming into the Cboe and kind of seeing all the work that went into listing the futures? Was that your eureka moment, or did it start even earlier for you?
That was definitely a sort of like an eye-opening event, but I think I've been involved in the Bitcoin space since its kind of inception. I went in with Bitcoin, probably sold it a little too early. I think the thought process I had was when I was at Cboe, it's or we call Cboe. If I go back to my, you got to
stay with the branding, right? The proper branding.
Yeah. If I go back to my early ISC days, the first electronic options exchange, that's where I saw the real evolution in the trading industry. There was this push and pull between the floor-based trading model and the electronic trading model. I actually did a small stunt at New York Stock Exchange, so I got to see the floor trading. And then I went to ISC. It was obviously, sky was the limit. We were just innovating and creating new electronic trading products, and the market was adapting it very, very quickly. And as you know, ISC took a lot of market share from some of the traditional floor-based exchanges. So fast forward 2017, 2018, honestly, it felt like a deja vu that the crypto industry is taking the capital market to a whole different level. And it's a matter of, given I sort of I get excited about these things. I want to be ahead of this curve, and there is still a lot happening, a lot need to change in the industry from a regulation, from a sort of maturity perspective, but the excitement in this world, I just couldn't keep myself out of it.
And you got in early. Hopefully you didn't sell it too much before the 20,000 level. Otherwise, that's a conversation.
I wish I would have kept that.
You are dialing me. You are dialing me from your own private island, I know. So maybe things went pretty well for you over there. Yeah, I'm also curious, Kapil, obviously shifting from, shall we say, the traditional world of equities and options into crypto. It is just different, very much so, from a mindset capacity. You're talking about new market makers, new trading firms. Many of them don't come from the same, both sides of the equation thing that you see on the option side where they want to provide liquidity. A lot of them come from the true believer side on the crypto side where they pretty much just want to buy and hold these assets. And there's a lot of other schools of thought on the crypto side that just simply aren't at work. Different mindsets, different, sometimes competing, sometimes clashing mindsets when you're talking traditional finance versus this new and evolving area of crypto. It's been fascinating for me to watch just here in Chicago, the different trading firms and exchanges and everyone else kind of coming to grips with this and coming to grips with the crypto world and how they meet. I'm curious for you, what has that been like as you've been quite literally navigating this divide right over the last 6 months, and how different is it for you now dealing with the crypto side versus your former life in the world of options?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, One important difference I notice is how connected different global markets are in this space. In traditional asset classes, it is very hard to kind of go cross-border. And if you're in Asia, you're in Europe, if you want to trade S&P 500 or SPY options, you still have to jump through multiple hoops. Crypto is... I must say, actually, the market outside the United States has been much more open and innovative, primarily thanks to how different regulators are seeing this industry evolving. There are jurisdictions who are more welcoming to the new tech innovation. SEC and CFTC have been very careful in this space, so that has kind of led to mainly Asia and Europe. Some countries are doing really amazing things in this space, and a lot of my customers are outside the United States, and that gives a very broad perspective of the potential of these asset classes. In terms of the players, when you look at the market makers or general sort of crypto economy, there are true believers, and there are definitely some traders in there. I haven't seen much traditional market makers who are just there for a fraction of a second. There's the high-frequency type traders haven't really come in. There are some, but not really to the scale we see in equity and options.
So different players kind of across the board, which I think is kind of par for the course, what you'd expect. So like I mentioned, different mindsets, different use cases, different viewpoints to the entire financial ecosystem, which makes it certainly fascinating for us here. Kapil, one of the big talking points we have a lot of our guests, and I like to pick their brains on this, is kind of the ebb and flow of institutional demand for crypto. We hear different things from different firms, particularly coming into this year when we first launched this program. Bitcoin and crypto trading were kind of at the low end. They were going into the tail end of this extended bear run. It wasn't exactly prime time for all things crypto, and we were hearing different things from crypto demand, if it was ebbing on that side, if they were kind of getting out of the space, and of course we've had a big turnaround, and we've heard conflicting things in between about some people saying firms are saying one thing to the public about whether they're not really interested, but behind the scenes they're staffing up, they're developing up, and it's actually a hot time for institutional crypto demand. This is kind of clearly in your wheelhouse over there at AlphaPoint. In fact, you guys have a product, a security token that's aimed pretty much effectively right at this audience. You launched it back at the end of March. Clearly, if you guys launched it in March, which was still the teeth of the bear market there, you clearly saw some demand there. I'm curious for you, what's your perspective been like over the past few months on this institutional demand? Are they still interested in crypto? And also, has the recent upswing, has that improved things, or was it pretty much always strong regardless of where the underlying itself was trading?
Absolutely. I think the demand from institutional space has never stopped. What we saw from late 2017 going into 18 was more like a correction. And I think sometimes corrections are good for any asset class. I mean, one can argue December 17 was the bubble that got built up probably too early. And then what we call the crypto winter came in, and it has done two things. It has sort of level set the expectations from any investor's perspective. I mean, if you're seeing 1,000% growth, then there is something wrong with that. So don't assume that would be the norm. And then second, it has actually what I call kind of taken the weed out, like the players who were in the industry for short-term gain, they're gone. When one of the interesting sort of observation I had is I go to an event in New York, been going there for about 2-3 years. It's a blockchain event that happens twice a year. And the type of audience in that event actually has changed. There are broker-dealers, there are RIAs, there are large market-making firms now coming to these events. You don't have the ICO white paper type of issuers who are just looking for short-term turnarounds. So the market, the industry is maturing. You're having a lot more mature conversation with established players. There is still a lot of challenge that the industry has to kind of overcome to bring all the institutional players have kind of make it look like other asset classes. Fragmentation is a huge challenge. The industry is actually, there are, if I have to keep the count, almost 500 plus exchanges where you can trade.
Yeah, it puts the 16 options exchanges into perspective, doesn't it?
Exactly. We used to complain about that.
I just came back from OIC a few weeks ago, and it was all anyone could talk about was 16 exchanges. 500, that puts it in stark relief, I think. That might be a good thing for you, Kapil. You can look back fondly on your days of complaining about 16 or 15, whatever it was back then.
There we go. All we have to bring is something like Reg NMS in there.
There we go. That'll chop it down. Well, I have to ask you as well, since we're talking about institutional demand, one of the big developments in that space, I know a lot of people were hitting us up when this happened, was, of course, Cboe choosing to effectively delist their crypto future, get out of that business. A lot of people thought that was maybe the canary in the coal mine, that there wasn't any institutional demand because Cboe was getting out of that space. You have some wherewithal with that. You spent time helping to develop that product over there at the Cboe. I'm curious, what are your thoughts just in general on them deciding to get out of the space? Do you think this is final? Were you surprised by the development? Do you think they're going to have maybe other forays into crypto in the future? You spent some time there. What are your thoughts on them effectively deciding to get out of the crypto or the Bitcoin futures, at least for now?
So I haven't had a chance to talk to my friends at Cboe. There are a couple of things there. Number one, of course, CME is still in the game, and they are actually growing pretty substantially. And ICE is coming back in the game. Addis Exchange is there. So there are new power entities who are coming in this space. One of the issues that I noticed is, at least in the U.S. Futures market, is having an exchange just building a product is not going to be sufficient unless you have the ecosystem around it. So having banks in that space is very important. Having prime brokers in that space is very important. The margin requirements on crypto is, by the time the end customer is able to trade the futures product, they're putting more than probably 50% of the margin. I think the official number is somewhere between 37 to 45, but then the brokers add on to their own margin requirements. So until those fundamental issues are resolved, I think it's going to be hard for the futures market to grow. With that said, we're seeing amazing amount of volume in the global futures market. The derivatives in this space is actually a really very popular product, and especially in Asia. There are some big futures exchanges who are doing amazingly well. So the demand for the product is there. Like any other asset class, you want it to be able to hedge it. You want to be able to use the leverage to trade it. And eventually derivatives are going to come in, depending on what shape it is. I think there is a clear lack of options in this space. I think if I'm a long-term Bitcoin investor, I would probably take a long-term, long leap position into it instead of just putting up where is it trading at today, 8,000 or something. So there is demand. I think we're seeing this in global market. The U.S. market is still kind of coming in very slowly.
Yeah, we're hearing that a lot, that we're kind of getting lapped on the overseas side from a regulatory perspective, with a lot of, Western Europe, Asia, Australia, other regions are proven to be far more willing to take a little bit of a bet on the crypto space, and they're starting to take the point as a result. So a lot of U.S. firms here I know are worried a little bit that that may be damaging. So we'll see how that plays out in the long run. And of course I'm with you on the options side. I thought we would have listed options a long time ago, but here we are halfway through 2019. Most of our audience had picked we'd see them in Q1 of 2018. Here we are a year and a half later and still nothing. So yeah, that's don't even get me started on that, Kapil. I could fill another hour-long show with that. Before we keep on rolling into what is trading out there right now, I know you guys have some interesting stuff going on. Speaking of illiquid assets, a space doesn't get much more illiquid than the equity crowdfunding space. It's a hot space. It's an interesting space. And it sounds like it's a space you guys are playing in as well. Is that the case there, Kapil?
Yeah, so I think on both equity as well as in the private debt space, we just actually made an announcement that a very large broker in Boston, Fundopoulos, is just decided to use our technology to reach out to to actually tokenize some of the private equity and private debt markets, especially targeted towards the small businesses. So that's, again, those are some of the examples of different type of projects that we're doing. Private debt market is very popular, especially in the international area, Australia, New Zealand, South America, South Africa. There's a lot going on in that space.
Yeah, and speaking of things going on, we have a lot going on in the trading world, too. I want to get to it. I'm going to give you a little bit of a break, Kapil, while I look into what's trading for a little bit. But while we're doing that really quickly, if our listeners want to check out what you guys have coming in the interim, where should they go? What should they do, sir?
They can definitely go to our website, and they can definitely reach out to one of us. I'm really, I've been in touch with all my old friends, and if anyone wants to know any details, definitely our sales team and myself are available.
All right, Kapil, have a beverage, take a break. I don't want to get you in trouble with your compliance by talking some trading stuff. So we're going to dive into that now. Then you can take a nice little break. We'll be back to answer some questions in a little bit. Meanwhile, listeners, of course, AlphaPoint is the website, ALPHA point.com is the place to go to learn more. Meanwhile, while we keep on going right on into the Bitcoin breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trading activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Bitcoin Breakdown, the portion of the show where we do exactly what it says. We break down what the heck is going on in the world of Bitcoin trading. And it's been off, like I said, we've been off for 2 weeks, so a lot has happened. At our last show, which was 2 weeks ago, Bitcoin was just shy of 8,000, about 79.14 or so. And a wee bit has happened since then. We bet it's happened even in the last 24 hours. A lot has been going. In net right now, coming into showtime, we were at just a little bit shy, 8,500, 8,499. It has rallied a bit since then. It's almost at 8,570 now. So we're up over 600 handles since our last show, of course, which is right around that 79.14 level or so. And it's been a hot, turbulent couple of weeks. Sure, go figure. Every time we have a week off, that's when things really rock and roll. And last week was certainly one of those. We saw Bitcoin rally to new one-year highs of 9,100, pretty much right around that level before dropping all the way back to right around almost the 8,000 level again. And then kind of settling out right in the middle there at 8,700 coming into today. We're off a little bit, about 1.5% or about 100 odd handles to about 8,570 or so. So we're kind of right in the middle of that range right now. So rally, 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 come off hard, rally again, settle out in the middle. It's kind of been pretty much the order of the day since our last show, but still, it's been a good time. The numbers are just coming in for May now. We saw Bitcoin, of course, come in. This level's at showtime, up nearly 4,000 just in the last 4 weeks, just in the last month, up more than 125% year to date so far, and closed the month of May with a 62% gain. That's the biggest monthly rally since August of 2017. We all know what was going on then. That was the March to 20,000. So a lot going on. I'm not saying we're hitting those levels again, but still a lot going on out here in the world of Bitcoin. Obviously some key psychological levels everyone's watching out there right now. 8,000 to the downside. If we break that, maybe watch out below. 9,000, of course, to the upside. Doesn't take a technician to figure these out right now. That's the levels everyone's really focusing on right now coming into showtime. In terms of vol, it's pretty much, it was elevated on our last show, and those numbers I just gave you, that's going to deliver some more vol. Vol is not going away anytime soon here. It was an 83 on our last show. We're up to almost 90, about an 89 right now. Remember, this is 1 month realized vol. So we're talking not just realized vol, actually vol in the marketplace. We talked about this before, implied. Looking at implied does get a little bit dicey out there sometimes. You can go to Deribit and a few others. But that's why I like realized, because you can actually sink your teeth into it out there. Speaking of Deribit, it has been pretty strong options volume out there on that platform since our last program. Let's hit on some of the highlights here. The biggest day in the last couple of weeks since our last show was the 29th of May, with nearly 60 million going up on the tape that day. That's a pretty strong number. And the second biggest day was the 27th of May with right around 40 million. Then it kind of drops off from there. The 30th did about 34.5 million. The 26th of May, about 31 million. And the second, so yesterday, coming in right around 24 million. Those are the biggest days of the last few weeks. Of course, right around the time of our last show, right before it, we saw numbers north of the 60, pushing the 80 million range. So not the biggest of the last month, but still some decent vol going on out there. Speaking of the vol, looking at the vol out there, decent volume, I should say, and vol. And looking at the vol out there right now, there's a nice spike towards the end of June, pushing north again of that, around that 90 level, 88, 90 or so. Then it comes off again in September into December, where it's pushing right around again to that 80. So not a huge spike, but a decent spike in the term structure out there on Deribit, with the peak coming right at the end, the 28th. The contract's expiring on the 28th of June. So interesting near-term expectations of volatility. Speaking of expectations, looking at the levels, you can imply a probability of where it's going to expire, right? Looking at where the options are trading. These come from Deribit. And again, all this data courtesy of our friends at Skew, SK3W. Check it out. You heard me mention it on the show before. They've been on the show before. Great data, really good stuff for you guys to sink your teeth into if you're so inclined. And you're listening to a show like this, so I'm guessing you are indeed inclined. Looking at what the options are pricing over there on Deribit, everyone likes the nice even numbers, right? So let's look at the 10,000 level. What are the options pricing in for a pure probability that will close above 10,000 by June expiration? June's pretty close. That's kind of tight, only about a 21%. If you go out to September, it goes up to about 30%, and it kind of stays there to December as well, both at around a 30%. So not a huge pop in terms of from Sep to Dece, both of them at right around a 30% probability of, again, expiring in the money. We talked last week about how the call to put, again, that's where the action is. It's put to call in the equity option world. In the crypto option, Bitcoin option, it's call to put ratio everyone looks at. It was pretty high last show, pretty strong, right around 66. It's off that a little bit, but still very elevated, around a 63. So calls leading the dance, as you might imagine, given the price action we've seen out there recently as well. Still strong action. Looking at the open interest by strikes out here on Deribit, and 10,000 is pretty strong. It's the number 2 strike with the most open interest. The number 1 strike actually is the 6,000 strike, which is a fairly in-the-money strike. Obviously now probably a lot of that going on the put side to maybe lock in some recent gains or hedge out there. Fascinating stuff. Speaking of fascinating, let's see what's going on the futures side of the fence. Going over there to the CME Bitcoin futures. A decent day, not a huge volume day given the amount of volatility we've seen over the last 24 hours. Thought we might have a little bit more on the tape. Only 4,500 going on in that front month June contract. Decent number, certainly, but off the 6,000 plus level we were seeing recently, and certainly off the big record numbers we were seeing there in April. Again, we don't have the numbers yet for the month of May in terms of total volume, but again, we saw nearly a 300% increase in ADV for the futures in April. Probably going to see similar strong numbers for May over there once those numbers are released. All right, let's keep on rolling and get on into a little bit of the old altcoin universe.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, everybody, welcome to the altcoin universe. This is indeed the portion of the show where we look at everything outside of Bitcoin, except for this beginning segment at the top of the show here, or top of the segment, where we look at the market cap. And number 1 is always going to be Bitcoin with about 150 billion. It's still off those highs recently, but still looking pretty strong. Number 2, ETH. Remember also, too, given all the Bitwise data out there, take these numbers with a bit of a grain of salt in terms of the net market cap. I think the percentages are still going to be there. The numbers, the rankings will still be similar, but the overall market cap maybe a little bit less than these numbers are saying. Number 2, ETH, 27.6 billion, I should say. Number 3, good old XRP, having a nice little run of late, about 17.6 billion. Not quite enough to challenge ETH anymore for number 2, but still looking pretty robust. Number 4, Bitcoin Cash, 7.5 billion. Number 5, good old EOS, with about 7.25 billion. Litecoin out of the top 5, number 6, with only a little bit shy of 7 billion out there. Let's break it down how these things are looking. I mentioned XRP. For a long time, the narrative was, can it get out of its own way? Can it get past the 32 or 33 cents, let alone 35, 36? It did that on our last show. It was at about a 40 on our last show. Now it's up to 44 cents. So XRP getting a little bit of a lift. People thought for a while there were a lot of headwinds, the JPM coin, other coins coming in to really threaten it, maybe give it a little bit of a ceiling, but it's blown through that ceiling, at least in the near term. So all you XRP bulls out there at least are going to be pretty happy on that one. ETH also up from our last show. It was at 252 on the last show. Coming into showtime, it was right around 260. Actually, it's north of that now, 261. So it's rallied a little bit even during the show. So another good week here for ETH. Another one that's kind of been leading the dance to the upside. Litecoin was the Q1 winner. When the numbers are all crunched for Q2, we'll have to see if that's the case. I'm guessing it's probably not, but it's still up pretty good. This week, up another 20 handles. It was 91 last show. This time at 111. Coming into showtime. So a good run here for Litecoin. Bitcoin Cash, not one to be left out of the dance. Also up about 7 handles. It was about 416 on our last show, up to about 423 right now, coming into the tail end of our show. Speaking of the tail end of our show, it's time for you guys to take hold of the program with a little bit of your crypto questions.
You've got questions about crypto. Who doesn't? It's time to find out the answers to your crypto questions.
All right, everybody. This is the portion of the show you've been waiting for where we get to answer your questions about all things crypto. Kapil, I gave you a little bit of a rest. You feeling better? You feel refreshed, sir? You ready to answer some questions?
Absolutely. It was good to hear some numbers on futures and options.
Yeah, things are lighting it up.
Exciting, yeah.
I wish there were more actual listed options. You don't have to go through a VPN to like a BitMEX or a Deribit, but hey, that's a conversation for another day, right? Well, Kapil, we like to answer our listeners' questions here. We also like to ask them questions sometimes. I'm curious for you. I'm going to bring you back to your old options days just for a couple of seconds here. We like to ask our listeners, so take the pulse of our audience, get a little bit of a poll. And our question of the week this week, we thought, Bitcoin at the time of the beginning of the show was at exactly 8,500. So pretty much right splitting the uprights between 8,000 and 9,000. So we thought we'd ask you guys, hey, if you had to make a 1-month options trade on Bitcoin right now, so going out to the end of the month, so expiring on the end of June, 31st of June, would you rather buy that 9,000 call, buy the 8,000 put, sell the 8,000 put, or do something else. All sorts of other things going on out there. Kapil, I won't make you make your own guess because that's no fun. I don't get you in trouble. But more importantly, where do you think our audience is leaning? Do you think they're super bullish in crypto right now? Are they buying that call? Are they bearish? Are they buying the put? Are they doing something else? What do you think our audience is up to, Kapil?
I have to take a guess, and looking at the sort of momentum in the market, I think, and considering this is a very retail play, I would probably go for bullish.
They're actually surprisingly mixed. I'm kind of surprised by this. They are leading. Bullish was leading by a lot more. Coming into showtime now. Again, it's only been live for a couple hours. It'll be live all week, listeners, so you can get out there and make your voices heard. At Options is the place to go to do just that. And buying the 9,000 call is leading by a lot less. Only 37% Kapil saying that. 32% said they want to buy the put. So pretty much neck and neck. And then 26% saying they want to sell the puts. Maybe I guess if you combine number 1 and number 3, you're getting over half of the audience. And then 5%, they're messing around with other things. Maybe they want to do straddle swaps, something weird out there. But we get into the weeds sometimes, Kapil, with our audience. But interesting stuff. The Bulls winning for now. It'll be interesting to see if that persists throughout the week or if other forces will prevail. Given how much Bitcoin can move, those levels could be blown by tomorrow. We shall see. So interesting stuff out here. Let's get to, here's an interesting one. El Taco. Here's one right up your alley here, Kapil. He wants to know, what is it that you think is really keeping the regulators from approving new crypto coins and or tokens? Obviously, Kapil, you guys are spending a lot of time, I'm sure, dealing with the regulatory side of the space and talking to a lot of different institutional firms who are also dealing with the regulatory side of the space. What are you hearing from all this, all your interactions and engagements on that side of the fence? What are you hearing is really the stumbling block right now from getting new products, new things like an ETF, getting that stuff approved by the regulators, sir?
Yeah, so that's exactly, that's an area where we're spending a good amount of time, and our chief legal officer, myself, some of us who come from the regulated background, market background, we've been following SEC and CFTC very closely. I think the general rule is the regulators have done a remarkable job in protecting the individual investors. And they are looking at it, again, from the same angle that once they approve any of these, whether it's the crypto coins or the digital securities, digital assets, how should they make sure that the individual investors are protected? And recently, SEC did release some guidance, and I think there is an event going on in Washington, D.C., FinCEN, where, at this point, regulators are looking at everything as securities, unless it's proven otherwise. They're applying the traditional, the quote-unquote Howey test, and they are making sure that all these new tokens or digital assets are going through that Howey test that has very well-defined securities law. You have to kind of prove all sort of disclosures in there. So it's taking time, right? They're taking a very careful approach. And that's part of the reason why I think they're not willing to approve all these new coins and sort of kind of draw the line, whether it's commodities or securities. There is a lot more that goes into this. One thing I can say, I think this is the first time I've seen SEC is doing a remarkable job in inviting comments from industry. They are actually talking very openly with practitioners. There is definitely a lot of open-mindedness in DC for crypto and digital assets.
That music, listeners, means we have come to the end of a very epic, fun journey through the world of all things crypto. And I want to thank my guest, Mr. Kapil, for joining me here on the program today. Remember, AlphaPoint Live is on their handle on Twitter, I should say. AlphaPoint.com is the place you want to go to learn more. Kapil, anything else you got up your sleeve you want to share with us before you're heading out, sir? Now is the time. The floor is yours.
Yes, again, it's always a pleasure to talk to you and interact with your listeners. Like I said, there is a lot more that's coming in the industry. I would love to stay in touch with our old friends in the community. If there is anything that you would like to know more about what's happening at AlphaPoint, www.alphapoint.com, or you can ping me on LinkedIn and we can chat more. Thank you, Mark.
All right. Thank you, Kapil. It was great having you on, hearing all the stuff going on the illiquid digital asset side of the space, a growing, as you just heard, a very growing and explosive part of the space. You can pretty much turn anything almost these days into a tradable token. And we're looking forward to seeing how all of this plays out. On behalf of Kapil and indeed myself, I want to thank all of you out there for downloading, streaming, subscribing, for sending in questions, for all the other fun stuff that you do. Keep it coming, and we'll see you back here next week for more of the Crypto Rundown.
The preceding program was a production of the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.